Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Indy's Trusted Servant Show after a wonderful holiday season. The Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz is available every Monday at 3 o'clock, InspireSmall.biz/Indy's Trusted Servant. What's Indy's Trusted Servant? Well, that's yours truly, Danny O'Malia. I do customer service training and keynote speaking about customer service and organizational culture. The culture determines what the service level is going to be. I learned all that from the hand of the master, my late father, Joe O'Malia, back in the O'Malia Food Market days. But even before that, when I was about 9 and 10 years old, he had a little grocery store in Broad Ripple where the Vanguard Bar is now. And he lost that store. And 10 years later, he came back and successfully launched O'Malia Food Markets. One of my lessons was never, ever, ever give up. If you want to learn more about my customer service training and keynote speaking, why, give me a call at 317-413-9062. What's the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz? Well, I like to describe it as lively local small biz and community talk where you can feel the pulse of Indy. And it's available every Monday at 3 o'clock. There's a new episode. I'm really pleased that today's guest is Tommy Reddicks, the founder and major domo and CEO, I guess, of what was the Paramount School of Excellence when I interviewed him on my old radio show. We don't know how many years ago, but somewhere between 3 and 5 years ago. And now it's up to 4 schools and even more. And they do a wonderful job, mainly with STEM education, but a lot more. So, Tommy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it.
Well, it's good to have you back. Tell everybody the Tommy Reddicks story as fast as you can. Where you grew up, where you went to school, what you studied, how you ended up with the Paramount School of Excellence. Schools of Excellence.
Sure. I was, really raised in Wyoming, in a small town of Wheatland, Wyoming, about an hour north of Cheyenne.
Okay.
Very conservative town and population of about 5,000 people in a county with 3 cities.
Okay.
So super rural. Went to the University of Wyoming and studied music. Was a jazz musician.
You're a cowboy.
Absolutely a cowboy. And still a big fan and Josh Allen fan with the Buffalo Bills because he came from the University of Wyoming.
There you go. Fine quarterback.
But yeah, studied jazz, got a degree in music education, went out and started teaching in Arizona, Seattle, Washington, the Colorado area.
Music?
Yeah, teaching music. And along the way, I started writing curriculum and got some traction there and was giving some seminars at national conferences and had a couple people say, hey, would you be interested in Indianapolis? And
why were people out there saying, would you be interested in Indianapolis?
Yeah, it was a national conference. They were looking for talent and looking for people who understood the curricular culture. And so we had talks, we had drinks, and within a couple of years, I was writing the foundations for Paramount School.
You were in Indianapolis by this time?
I was in Colorado still.
You were so there was no Paramount School in your head, just the idea for the school.
Right.
Okay.
And about 3/4 of the way through that process, the thought of coming out to Indy and being the leader of that initial school that I was designing the building blocks for was just a little too attractive. And so that lured me out. And
so you pulled up stakes. That's quite a move. Now, were you married at the time?
I was.
Okay. So that was a big family move.
My wife at the time had never lived outside of Colorado.
It was a
big move for her.
Okay. Did you meet her at the University of Wyoming?
No, I met her when I moved to Denver.
Oh, okay. That is a big move. Now, what year was that?
Gosh, I moved to Denver, I think.
When you came to Indy.
2009, 2010.
2009, 2010. And you came here with the idea to start the Paramount School of Excellence.
Exactly.
Okay. Where'd you get the name?
The name was given to me by the folks that were interested in launching the school.
Okay.
And so the original name of the school was Paramount School of Excellence, a Challenge Foundation Academy, because it was associated with the National Challenge Foundation initially, and that association kind of melted away before the school launched. But it was a mouthful.
I guess.
We condensed that down to Paramount School of Excellence.
Now, the original Paramount School is in the Irvington area, right?
Close to Irvington. It's basically 16th and Rural, or 16th and Keystone, that area. So.
And is it in an old IPS school? Is that correct?
No, it's in an old Masonic temple.
Old Masonic Temple.
Built, built
that's
1922.
okay, that's coming back. So you started off, what year was the Paramount School founded?
We launched in August of 2010.
And how many students did you, and that's K through 8? K through 8. And how many kids did you have?
389 kids in that first year.
How'd you get 389 kids to come to a school that didn't exist before?
Well, we knocked on every door within about 3 miles.
Yeah.
We spent months doing it. Our ground campaign, it wasn't aggressive, but it was very true. And so I put in a lot of sweat equity, learning that area of the east side of Indianapolis, going to every neighborhood meeting I could possibly go to.
What was the pitch?
Well, the pitch was we were looking at education a little bit differently. We were going to personalize it more. It was going to be more individualized for our kids. We were going to be able to solve the academic equation on the east side that hadn't been solved in years. And quite honestly, it didn't work in our first year. I feel like everything we walked into that school to do was an absolute failure in the first probably,
Was that because you guys just didn't know what you were doing mainly, or what?
We knew what we were doing. We didn't know our clientele.
Okay.
And I think, I had a lot of academic expertise, but did I have expertise with parents on the east side of Indy? And that answer was no. And so there was a lot of learning in that initial year, learning from our parents, learning from our kids, learning from our teachers.
Kind of learning the culture of the neighborhood.
And the culture of Indiana as a whole, because I was coming in from middle class Colorado with a lot of high ideals on how I could change the world through education. I needed to humble myself and realize that all those high ideals were cool, but there could be other ways to be successful. And so we pivoted really fast after our first year, and we really saw.
Did you lose a lot of kids that first year?
Not really.
Not really. Okay.
No, I think we had a lot of people who were dissatisfied with their current schools who were choosing to come to us.
I was going to bring that up. You're in an area where a lot of people have reason to be dissatisfied with the school.
Right.
Right.
So I think there was some comfort in coming to a school that was ready to think out of the box and ready to embrace that parent dynamic and try to accomplish something better.
So are you a charter school?
We are.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So K through 8. Now, when I visited the school before I interviewed you, you guys had so much going on there. You had a planetarium there, right? You had a little farm where the kids could raise some animals in the inner city, right?
Correct.
And learn a little bit about farming and all of that. You really had a lot going on, which I thought was very, very cool. Now, your facility, the original one, is not big enough for much more than 400 kids, right?
800.
You got 800 kids in one school there.
And we did expand that facility, and I don't know if it was before or after the last time we talked, but we expanded it to add probably another 20,000 square feet.
Did you have to build on?
We did. We built on the building, added a dedicated middle school. We had a K-8 setting where it was kind of all combined, and now we have a K-5 setting with a dedicated middle school wing.
And a middle school. Okay, cool. That's cool. I did not know that. So, how long did you always have it in mind that, boy, if we can get this off the ground, we're going to open more schools?
Absolutely not.
No.
I thought this is fantastic to be the school leader of a building where I got to be part of the building blocks of how it goes. I thought that was the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And I was really happy with that challenge.
When Joe O'Malley opened his first grocery store, he didn't have any desire or thought of opening a second either. He ended up with 9. Right. So you never know. When did you first decide we got to open some more schools?
Well, it's an interesting story because our success, like I mentioned, we had to learn a lot early, but then we really started taking off academically. We had a lot of student success, and we've continued that. And so the more you succeed, the more you have people like the mayor's office, the Mind Trust, Institute for Quality Education.
They take notice of you.
They start knocking on the door and saying, hey, these are amazing results. More kids need access to this kind of education. How can we create more seats for those kids? And so they were pushing us to say, you need to open another school. And we were saying...
What mayor? Was it Hogsett or before?
This was before Hogsett.
Who was before Hogsett?
Ballard. Yeah, Mayor Ballard. Yeah.
Yes.
And Ballard's staff was... they were talking and pushing. They weren't demanding, because it's really not the role of the mayor's office to demand that you open more schools. But they were suggesting, hey, if you do this, there's going to be an appetite and a demand for it.
This is interesting because that flies in the face of the IPS system, which the mayor also wants to do well. The mayor's people want to do well. So that had to be a kind of a difficult dynamic for them to think about, right?
And it remains one because
Yeah.
you want a thriving public school system in general. And charter schools are public schools, so they're free schools for families, but every new school we open poses a threat to the existing public school system.
Exactly.
And we don't operate to be a threat.
I understand.
But we're a competitor. And like
Yeah.
any other business, if you put a McDonald's next to a Burger King, there's competition there.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So where was the second, third, and fourth schools?
the second school first opened up in the Community Heights neighborhood right next to Community East Hospital.
Okay.
That was a temporary facility. It's now permanently located in the Cottage Home neighborhood right near Arsenal Tech High School.
Okay. And how many kids are going to that school?
Right now, we have 271 students attending that school.
And when did that open?
That opened, 4 years ago now in the temporary facility, but it's been in this new facility for 2 years.
Now that's not too far from your original school.
No, it's about 2 miles.
Is it 2 miles away? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the third and fourth
The third
schools?
school is in the old PR Mallory building, which is a
Oh,
building that IPS
Washington
owned and
Street.
sold off. Yeah.
Yep.
And we now share that building with Purdue Polytechnic High School. So we operate a 5th grade through 8th grade middle school that matriculates into Purdue Poly High School
Polytechnic.
on the same building. So
That's the building Purdue. No, doesn't Purdue Polytechnic have a building in Broad Ripple?
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've
okay.
got multiple campuses.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a terrific, Mitch Daniels, he's a smart guy.
Yeah, he's done well. Yeah.
So that's the third school. The fourth school is?
The fourth school is inside our second school. We've got a space carved out for it. It's Paramount Online Academy. And it was a response to the pandemic where so many families retreated back into their homes for education. We found early on that we had an academic model that was serving those parents well and achieving higher academic outcomes than their local schools were. And so we wanted to put an exclamation point on that and say, we can see the field is changing a bit, the parent dynamic is changing a bit, the work dynamic is changing a bit. There's a new population of people who can work from home. And those families are looking for online education, and there's not a lot of high quality online education out there. So our online academy was a response to that.
So it's still going.
It's
and
still
you
going.
Permanently will.
Yep.
How many kids? Now let's see. You had 281 kids in the second school. How many at the school at PR Mallory?
In PR Mallory, it's 222 right now, and both of those schools with a capacity of about 450.
And the online, how many students you got?
The online right now, 195.
Okay. How are these other schools? They can't be exactly the same as your original school. They're not as big, right?
Right.
So they can't have. Do they have the planetarium? Do they have the farm? Do they have all that stuff?
Yeah, they have bits and pieces. What we say is, and going back to expansion and what was happening when people said, hey, you need to grow, our initial response was no, we don't need to grow. What we need to do is figure out who we are. We need to capitalize on our success by codifying our model first.
Yeah.
And once we do that, then we're ready to grow. And so we spent a good 2 years thinking about our model, writing it all down, hiring consultants to walk the walk with us. So we knew we had a Paramount playbook ready to go. So when we launched that second and third school, the playbook was in order. So what you see when you walk the halls and walk into classrooms is very, very similar.
It's the culture's the same.
Yeah, and
you may not have all the bells and
and
whistles.
the academic culture, the way we teach, how we teach, how we act, all of that's the same. Now, the Cottage Home campus has a farm with goats, just like the Brookside campus.
Okay.
But no chickens and no bees.
Oh, you can't have everything.
Right. The PR Mallory campus, our Paramount Middle School campus, they've got the same exact robotics program going that the Brookside campus does. And so, we're just taking advantage of the pieces of the puzzle that we can, given the site that we're on. But when you walk in the building, it's Paramount through and through.
Culture runs through this show because culture is really everything, no matter where you are. You've had some time to measure the success of your graduates. Where do your graduates go to high school, first of all? Probably a bunch of places, but...
Well, what we want to do is cater that experience. We don't want it to be, hey, you're done, go conquer the world, good luck to you. We want every single student to have an individualized experience for selecting the best location for them for high school, the best setting in high school. And because we're a smaller model, we can do that individualized approach. So every student's going to have a conversation with their career counselor. They're going to know, okay, this student's going to thrive really well in a smaller environment or in a liberal arts environment or in a magnet environment. And so from that, we're going to start targeting locations for them. We do send a lot of our students to Purdue Polytechnic High School, to Heron High School, Providence Cristo Rey is another great example of place to go. There's some privates, Park Tudor. A lot of our kids have gone to Park Tudor. So it's just trying to find the avenue that's going to be the best fit for the child, and not just saying go forth and conquer.
Sounds like you're sending them mostly to private and charter schools, right?
We are. The high school market in IPS is really narrowed. There's only 4 or 5 options right now in the high school market for IPS, and 2 of those are innovation IPS schools, which would be Heron and Purdue Poly. So those are IPS.
They are IPS, that's right. Yeah.
And so, we're navigating those waters. I think what we're scared to do is send our students to one of those big giant high schools where they could get lost in the system because they're very used to
the smaller place. Yeah. By the way, off topic, but not really, have you seen Cathedral High School's new STEM Center?
I have not.
You should get out there and see it, and if you want to, I can make arrangements for you to go out and see it. They're teaching robotics there too.
That would be neat.
Yeah. And so, and of course, there's lots of schools with STEM programs. In fact, I think most schools, especially public schools, probably have a STEM program of one type or another. I had the guy that runs the STEM program for Lawrence schools on my radio show after I had you, and I was really impressed with that.
I think what's gone on with STEM has changed academics as a whole. I think when we look at language arts and mathematics and science, they no longer sit in a static silo where you just teach math. What we're teaching now is how do you activate math in a real life situation? And suddenly as you say that, you're in STEM. How do you activate science in a way that is active and not just theoretical?
Okay.
When you start playing that way in your teaching, suddenly you're teaching STEM. And I think the way the standards have changed over the years and how we have to worry about process more than product, it's kind of forcing us to lens our academic approach that way, and I like that a lot.
That's cool. Now, back to the where the kids go to high school question. You've been around long enough that some of your kids have graduated from college. They do well in college, I take it. And where do they go to college?
We don't have a lot of active statistics on that.
You probably should, and you will someday,
well,
right?
We'll have it. I worry about the authenticity of the data because we're one layer of education removed.
Yeah,
when we get to that point. And so we pride ourselves in the high school stat, that our kids are moving into high school and how are they doing in high school? And what we're hearing back from the leaders of the schools where we're sending our students is, we love Paramount kids. They come in prepared, they're ready to go. That's really the feedback we want as an institution. And so, yeah, the college data is good, but their high school experience can make them or break them too.
Do you happen to
that's that stuff.
Do you happen to know how many students Purdue Polytech has?
I don't.
Okay. I like the idea of Purdue Polytech a lot. Again, the STEM thing is so important, and that's great that your kids are going there, and Providence Cristo Rey as well. How many employees do you all have?
We're about 180 employees right now as an organization, and I would bet we'd be in the neighborhood of 225 this time next year because we're opening 2 more schools next year.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Next year's the first year we're going to travel outside of Indianapolis, and I think it's an important step and a scary step for our organization.
Yeah.
Because scale is easy in your bubble, but applying resources and support beyond that bubble is a whole new challenge. And so, we're facing that challenge optimistically, but not blind. And we're going to be opening a school in Lafayette and South Bend next year.
Near the campuses of Purdue and Notre Dame?
Well,
just guessing.
Fairly near to Notre Dame, probably a mile and a half from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
A little further from the campus of Purdue because we're in Lafayette proper, not West Lafayette.
Okay.
And really centrally located in Lafayette. And so I think we'll have a lot of access to a lot of families who are looking for a different style, a different kind of education.
Your current relationship with sending kids to Purdue Polytechnic, is that going to help you with that school, you think?
I don't think so.
Okay, why not?
It's a strange thing. Well, basically it's a matriculation model, so we love to send our 8th graders to a Purdue high school, but there is no Purdue high school in Lafayette.
Right.
And so that relationship is strong and it looks good because we can
But
say,
it's just here in Indy.
Right. We can say we favor Purdue and that's really good in a matriculation model, but it's just not, it doesn't exist. Now in South Bend there is a Purdue high school.
Oh, there is?
So we can have that model in South Bend.
Is it called Purdue Polytechnic?
It is.
It is? Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, that's great.
It is.
That's great. And again, in Lafayette, you've got you got Purdue itself, and that's got to be a big advantage. So, boy, back to the original school. Now, since I've interviewed you, however many years ago it was, and you say you've added on, have you got any more bells and whistles like the robotics and the farm and all that stuff?
I would say that the singular bell and whistle that we've added has been a coffee shop.
Oh, and that's something that's going on at a lot of schools.
And I feel like we were the troubadour of that, because we probably started it back when we talked last, but it was in a 10 by 10 room. But we actually hired a professional barista, put in thousands of dollars in great coffee equipment, set up an online ordering system. So as a teacher in the school, if you want a coffee, you can dial it up on your phone, a barista delivers it to your classroom for free.
A grade school aged barista.
Whoa. No,
or a real
very
barista.
legitimate barista.
So this coffee shop is not operated by the kids.
Oh no.
Oh,
It's totally a we love you staff retention perk.
cool.
And
Do you have any walk-ins at the coffee shop?
We do.
You really?
And,
Okay.
it's interesting because it started out as a room no bigger than the one we're talking in right now. And we've since built that into a coffee shop experience that when you walk in feels nicer than any Starbucks you've walked into. We've trained up our barista and sent them through a year-long training, probably more than a year. So we now have the highest certified barista in the state of Indiana running our programs.
That's wild.
And coffee shops in each of our schools, and high-end coffee. Tinker Coffee is our provider. They've created our own proprietary blend that you can only get at our schools. So it's turned into something in terms of a great perk for staff that's just kind of out of this world and really neat.
When you mention coffee shop, I know Franklin Central has a coffee shop run by the kids. Cathedral's going to open a coffee shop run by the kids. So that's what I thought you were talking about, but that's completely different.
No, this is 100% for staff. This is to tell our staff that we care about them and to create an environment where they feel special.
How, speaking of staff, and which is always one of my interesting, topics, because we had a lot of people working at our grocery stores. Have you been able to maintain staff pretty well?
It's been a fight. I think the teacher shortage, if you've heard any rumor of that, it's more than rumor. It's pretty phenomenally bad, and that's nationwide. It's a field that's been really deprived economically over the years and hasn't met inflation over the years.
Right.
And so if you're going into that profession, you're accepting the fact that you're going to make a lower wage and work longer hours. And if a teacher works an 8-hour day, they're still grading papers for the other 3 or 4. And
I was a teacher for 6 years. I know all about that.
There's a lot of that in there. So it's really a challenge finding talent and then holding talent, because COVID did devastating things to people all over the place, and I think it's created a lot of job hopping and job insecurity, and what used to be 2 or 3 years was kind of the average lifespan for an employee. Coming out of COVID, 2 or 3 years sounds really, really nice. And so, finding employees and maintaining and retaining employees is always a challenge, and we work really hard to try to solidify that.
Have you got people that have been with you since you started?
Gosh, I think there are 2 people in the organization that were here in 2010, myself and one of our operations managers.
Okay, so that is a challenge then.
Absolutely.
That's definitely a challenge. Your pay scale, is it on line with IPS, or how do you do that?
It was in line with IPS, and then they passed their last referendum and advanced their teacher base by a good $10,000, and we answered that, and we're a couple thousand away from their base, so we're still competitive.
You're competitive.
But charter schools don't get the same level of income. We don't get any public taxpayer dollars, any property tax dollars.
Right.
It's harder for us to equalize that playing field. So we're competitive, but if we tried to play in the exact same lane as IPS, we'd put our organization at risk.
Well, and again, it's a certain type of person that wants to teach for less money, but in a better environment that fits them better.
And an environment's proving success for kids.
Yeah.
Our academic outcomes, on average, 40% higher than IPS every year. So those are staggering numbers.
You were talking about some of the courses. Let's talk about that for a minute. Now, basically a lot of STEM stuff. Obviously, with the farm and some of the other stuff I saw, you're thinking about business. How are we doing there with some of the other building blocks, like history and English, for instance?
I think we're a pace setter in English and language arts. And so many of our students, especially our students who are coming from challenging prior experiences, are very low in their ability to read and write.
Yes,
Yes. It's really hard to achieve great STEM or math or science or history if reading and writing is your base issue.
Yep.
And so what we can do in one calendar year with those students and the growth that we can show is above and beyond anybody in the area. So that's job number one, is making sure that reading and writing skills are getting where they need to be fast enough. And then you've got student mobility in a poverty population. You know, families are moving a lot, not because they want to,
Yeah.
because they have to. And if you're going to lose 20 or 30% of your poverty population every year due to just things that happen in mobility, we have a year to solve that problem, or we're potentially losing that child to another school who's going to try to tackle that problem. And so we see it as a very urgent battle academically on the language arts side. And so I think we do a really good job there. History and STEM and sciences and robotics and the farm experiences and work experiences over the summer, we really pride ourselves in those, and I think there's some rich opportunities for kids, but it all starts with English language arts.
Take history and English, for instance. Do you have a harder time hiring those teachers than you do science teachers and math teachers? Because that's the mindset when people think about Paramount.
Not really. I think
not really.
The hardest teacher to hire is a math teacher, because in the teacher shortage, that's been the one in the highest demand. And so math teachers are like liquid gold. When you find a good one, it's an amazing thing that's just happened for you. I think language arts is next, and it's hard. Special education is a hard one to fill. History and science tend to be a little easier. I think there's more of them.
There's more of them out there. Okay, yeah. Let's see. In the few minutes we've got left, back to the new school, South Bend and Lafayette. You touched on this a little bit, but one thing that I think you're already thinking about it, but you don't want to grow too fast. You know, take a business that's not around anymore, Scotty's Brew Pubs.
Right.
If you're familiar with that, started on college campuses, Ball State and Purdue and so forth. Came to Indianapolis, they were doing great. Looked like they grew too fast. You're worried about that, I'm sure.
Horribly worried about it.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the biggest factors that haunt us through the process. We were actually going to open in Lafayette. Our initial plan was this year, and we pushed that back a year just to get one more year of planning and preparation for that. So yeah, it's such a leap of faith to go through scale. That's why it's really important for us that we're codified, that we're systematic, that we're not being reactive, we're being super proactive and making sure that we've laid the groundwork, that our academic system is so firmly in place that we can apply enough supports to keep it strong.
That's going to be a challenge. You're going to, you want to do the most good and spread the most good you can. On the other hand, you don't want to ruin what you've already got. Yep. And that's something to be aware of. And I'm sure going into a new location, you had the same problem when you started up. How am I going to get the employees here? They don't know anything about this, right? So you're taking an extra year to plan. I think that's admirable.
Yeah, and we're keen on not taking talent from existing situations and robbing that talent from one situation to put it in a new one. And so for us, it's about systematically building up new talent in a new environment without tearing down what we already had. And that means completely new employees who need to be indoctrinated in the system, have enough time to be trained in the system so we can be successful.
Sounds like you got a good finger on the whole culture issue. You got less than a minute left. What do you want to add? Anything?
Well, we are opening a girls' school in the Midtown area in 2024. It'll be a kindergarten through 8th grade girls' school that will serve Purdue Poly in their Broad Ripple area.
And why a girls' school only?
It's in recognition that there are not enough girls in STEM at Purdue University. And so trying to solve that problem at the grassroots level so we can build up that energy and excitement to matriculate all the way up.
Somebody wants to find out more about Paramount Schools of Excellence. How do they do that?
ParamountIndy.org.
ParamountIndy.org. Tommy Reddicks, the head of Paramount Schools. Keep up the good work. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.